So thank you for joining us here at Bidwell Mansion State Historic Park. My name is Elijah. I'm a park interpretive specialist here. And today we are here for the Junior Ranger program, Design Your Own Mansion. So we will be looking at Bidwell Mansion. We'll be learning a little bit about its history and the people who built it. And then we will be applying what we learn to designing our own dream mansions, because who doesn't want a mansion? So before we get into that, I would like to talk just a little bit about the Junior Ranger program itself. So we are not the only park offering the Junior Ranger program. You may have been to other parks and their Junior Ranger programs. So there are other parks offering Junior Ranger programs in the following weeks. You can sign up for them the same spot you signed up for this one. And by attending these Junior Ranger programs, if you stick around to the end and fill out the survey at the end of the presentation, you can get a virtual Junior Ranger badge. Now, if you attend multiple programs and collect enough of these virtual Junior Ranger badges, you can actually trade them in for some pretty cool real-life prizes. So one of the things you can get is well, if you get 2 virtual Junior Ranger badges, you can trade them in for an actual real-life badge. You can get it on your clothes, show it off to your friends. If you attend 4 Junior Ranger programs, get 4 Junior Ranger virtual badges and send those in, you can trade those in for a certificate. You can hang it on your wall. It'll say you're a Junior Ranger. And if you attend 6 whole programs, take 6 of those surveys at the end, get 6 of those virtual Junior Ranger badges, you can trade those in for a patch. It looks kind of like the patch on my uniform here that says Junior Ranger on it. You can put it on your clothes, show it off to all your friends, let them know that you are a Junior Ranger. And since this is the Junior Ranger program, we're going to go ahead and get started with our Junior Ranger pledge, which I have here. Don't worry if you can't see it too well. I'm going to go ahead and read it out so you can repeat it after me, and we'll get you sworn in as Junior Rangers. With this program, you'll be well on your way to collecting your virtual badges. So for the Junior Ranger pledge, we'll go ahead, we'll raise our right hands, very official, and you can repeat after me. I, your name, so I, Elijah, promise to treat the earth and all living things with respect, be thoughtful of what I do and how it affects others, learn about the importance of nature in our state parks, and with that, you are now sworn in as a Junior Ranger. If you've already done that in the past, you are now an extra special Junior Ranger. So congratulations, and let's go ahead and get started with our program. So here at Bidwell Mansion State Historic Park, as you might guess by the name and by the giant mansion over there, we have a mansion here. So this mansion is what we're going to be looking at and talking about today. We're going to be exploring it a little bit, talking about the people who made it, and using that to then design our own mansions. I know it's hard to see the whole mansion there, so I do have a nice little model mansion here. This is the Bidwell Mansion as well, so you can see kind of what the whole thing looks like. We'll be referencing this throughout the program. And really what I want you to take away today is that houses like the Bidwell Mansion, but even houses like you might see on your everyday suburban street, they're much more than just places that we live. They are a representation and a reflection of our culture, of our values, of our beliefs, of our society, of our level of technology. And you can learn a lot about somebody by looking at the house that they live in. So what can we learn about John Bidwell, the man who had Bidwell Mansion constructed, by looking at the mansion? Now, I know that it's kind of a lot to think about, values, beliefs, culture, society. We're going to simplify it a little bit. We are going to simplify it into 2 categories: wants and needs. What did John Bidwell want when he was building this house? What did he need when he was building this house? And the interesting thing is, by looking at wants and needs, we can really see why, in some ways, houses are different all around the world. Because if you think about it, are my wants and my needs living here in California, are they going to be the same as the wants and the needs of somebody living in Japan, or living in Saudi Arabia, or living in South Africa? Probably not. People around the world have different wants and different needs. They have different cultures, values, beliefs. They live in different places. So you can learn about people's culture and their society by looking at their houses, and you can see why houses are built different all around the world. What about time period as well? You can tell by looking at this house, this is kind of an old house, right? This house was actually built over 150 years ago. We don't really make houses that look much like this house anymore. Got some other old houses here. Are the wants and the needs of John Bidwell, who had this house constructed over 150 years ago, are they going to be the same as my wants and needs today? No, not really. Are his wants and needs 150 years ago going to be the same as the wants and needs of somebody who lived 150 years before him? No. Think about the castles in England, for example. Are the wants and needs of the people who built those castles, are they going to be reflected in my wants and needs today? Probably not. I'm not trying to protect myself from invasion by feudal warlords, so I'm not going to build a castle. It's not my want or my need. But looking at Bidwell Mansion in particular, what can we learn about John and his wants and his needs? I'll give you a little bit of background about John Bidwell. He was born in the year 1819. So we actually recently celebrated his 200th birthday. And he was not born in California. He was actually born on the East Coast in New York. He came to California before the gold rush happened. He participated in the Bear Flag Revolt in the Mexican-American War. And then when the gold rush happened in 1849, he found quite a bit of gold, which actually allowed him to purchase all of the land that's around us now. He bought around 22,000 acres of land with his gold mine. And then he set himself up as a farmer. So he founded the city of Chico, which is where we're coming to you from today. And the city was largely populated by people who worked for him on his ranch. And with this, he really set himself up for the rest of his life. He was quite wealthy, quite successful, and very involved in a lot of different historical events throughout California and really the entire West. So that's why we have his mansion today, because it can help teach us about these historic events, these historic peoples. And it can also, of course, tell us a lot about John Bidwell himself. So breaking the mansion down into wants and needs, what can it tell us? Well, let's look at our model here. The first thing that I'm going to point out, it might be so obvious we might not even think about it. Does this mansion have walls? Does it have a roof? Yes. Is that important in a house? Can you have a house without walls or without a roof? Not really. So our first need is going to be shelter. A house needs to provide shelter. That's kind of its most fundamental duty as a house. You need it to keep you out of the rain, the wind, the sleet, the snow, the hail. If a house doesn't provide shelter, it's not much of a house. So that's pretty universal. No matter when you live, no matter where you live, you're going to need a house that gives you shelter. And that is true for Bidwell Mansion. But what else can we see looking at this house? One of the things that I always notice, first off, when looking at the mansion, is this big old tower in the front, right? The tower. Tower. Is that going to be a want or a need? Would this house still be a nice house if it didn't have a tower? Yeah. Would it still work as a house? No, it'd be a great house without a tower. So the tower is definitely going to be more of a want than a need. But why would John Bidwell want a tower? What does that tell us about him? Well, one thing that it can tell us is a little bit about John's political career. Because when he built this house, which he started in 1865 and finished in 1868, this is a period of time when he was really getting involved in politics, when his political career was really taking off. He had been elected to serve in national Congress, and he'd set his sights even higher. In fact, he was thinking about maybe becoming governor of California, maybe president of the United States of America. And he wanted a house that reflected that. He wanted people to look at his house and say, wow, that's a nice house. I bet a president could live in that house. So part of that is putting this tower on here. because it shows people that he's rich and he's powerful and he's wealthy and important enough to have a mansion with a tower on it. He's kind of making a statement about his political aspirations here. And besides that, this tower also ties into one of John Bidwell's hobbies. Think about the hobbies you have. What sorts of things do you like to do in your everyday life? And if you had all the money in the world to build a house, how could you build a house that catered to those hobbies? When John Bidwell first came out to California, he came out in the year 1841, about 7 years before gold was discovered. And they didn't have cars back then, no planes. He couldn't even take a train out here. He had to load up all his stuff in a wagon and come out to California. It took him about 6 months. And his wagon did not survive the trip. Nobody in his party was able to bring their wagon because they came across the Sierra Nevada mountains and their wagons didn't make it. So it's like if you were to imagine packing up your whole house in a U-Haul truck and driving it to a new city to live in, except, you know, maybe halfway there, the U-Haul truck breaks down and you have to leave all your stuff behind. John Bidwell lost all of his things coming to California, but what he could carry with him. And one of the things that he carried with him was a book about astronomy. John Bidwell really liked astronomy. He liked to watch the stars. He liked to map out constellations. This was important enough to him, but that is one of the very few things, all of his personal belongings that he picked to take with him to California. And what better place to look at the stars than on top of a tower, right? You can get all the way up on the Widow's Walk up here, and John Bidwell could put his telescope up here and he could observe planets, he could observe stars, he could engage in this hobby, which he loved. So the mansion helps him in terms of that with its tower. Tower 1. What else do we have? Well, I'm starting to sweat right now. It's pretty hot. We're going to have another 100-degree day today, as we have been having. Chico gets very hot. It got hot back in John Bidwell's time. So what about temperature control? Is temperature control going to be a want or a need? Did they have air conditioning back when John Bidwell lived? Well, no, they didn't. But they did have other ways of staying cool during these hot Chico summers. And we can see a clue to that on the house. This little thing right here is called a cupola. And it is actually a vent in the top of the house that vents hot air out. So they didn't have air conditioning, but since hot air rises, it's going to rise from the bottom of the house up, and it's going to leave the house through the cupola here, and that'll keep their house cooler. What about the chimneys? There's a few chimneys on this house, but this house actually has 8 coal-burning fireplaces, because although it gets very hot in the summer, Chico also gets cold in the winter. So John put in a way to keep his house warm. Temperature control. Is it a want or a need? This actually gets a little interesting because that kind of depends on where you live, right? If I were to live in the equator where the seasons, they don't change too much, it's pretty warm all the time, I might not need temperature control in order to survive. I might be less comfortable. I might want temperature control. I like air conditioning myself, but it might not be necessary. However, if I'm living in the far north of Russia or Canada, up in the Arctic Circle somewhere, is temperature control going to be a want or a need? It's going to be a need then, right? Because I'm not going to survive the winter without a way to heat my house. So, depending on where you live, this could change from a want to a need. For John Bidwell, because it does get pretty darn cold in the winter in Chico, especially back then, we have pictures of the mansion covered in snow, we're going to go ahead and put temperature control underneath. Where would your mansion be built? Would you need temperature control or would you just want it? So another thing that this mansion has, it's hard to see behind us, but there are some lights on the porch of that mansion. There's lights inside as well. This mansion has electricity. Now, is electricity going to be a want or a need? Well, for us today, electricity is probably going to be a need. This program is being brought to you courtesy of electricity and the wonderful electronic devices which it powers. But for John Bidwell, was electricity a want or a need? When this mansion was built, when it was finished in 1868, they didn't have electricity. This house was lit with gas lights. So Electricity didn't even come into the equation when the house was under construction. Electricity wasn't put into the house until only a few years before John died in the 1890s. So for us today, while electricity might be considered a need in our society, for John Bidwell, it was definitely more of a want. It was neat, it was cool new technology that he put in his house, but he lived fine without it for most of his life. So he didn't really consider electricity to be much of a need. And that kind of shows us how these wants and needs can change depending on the time in which we live. Our time is very different from John Bidwell's time. So what other things can we notice? Well, I would say Wi-Fi, but John Bidwell wasn't considering Wi-Fi. He didn't think about Wi-Fi at all. I can tell you, this house, built long before Wi-Fi ever existed, didn't exist in either of the Bidwell's lifetimes. This house does not get Wi-Fi in. The reason why we're giving you this program outside today, besides the fact that it's a lovely day and I like to be outside, is the fact that this house has 1 foot thick hollow brick walls filled with lead pipes. Concrete has been poured down many of them. We cannot get a signal in this building, no matter what we do. We have tried long and hard to get Wi-Fi in the house. So far, no success. So John Bidwell was certainly not thinking about Wi-Fi when he built his mansion. So since we can't go inside the house because of our lack of Wi-Fi, you're going to have to rely on my knowledge because I've been in the house. I work there. I'm going to tell you about a room in the house that John had put into the house. And that room is a library. So John Bidwell really liked to read. John didn't live in the house by himself either. He had a wife. His wife was named Annie Bidwell. She was a dynamic and fascinating person in her own right. She also liked to read. The two of them spent a lot of time in this library. But it was definitely more of a want than a need. Still would have been a fine house without the library, but it was a way that they could keep up with current events. And of course, they didn't have TV, video games, no electronics back then. You did a lot more reading than you might do now. So there we have it, the wants and needs of Bidwell Mansion. And you can see how these tell us a little bit about the mansion itself, about the people who lived in it, the things that they found important, and things that they took into consideration when they were building the home. So our next step, we are going to take this same process and we are going to think about our dream mansions. What do we want? What do we need? Do we want and need the same things that the Bidwells want and need? Or are our wants and needs maybe different than the Bidwells? So I'm going to ask you to take something to write with and something to write on, and we are going to make a list of our own wants and our own needs for our dream mansion. And I'll take down Bidwell's wants and needs. I'm going to put up a list of my wants and needs. These are just for an example, so don't feel like you have to follow my wants and needs. You can certainly do your own wants and needs. This is just to give you maybe an idea of the sorts of things that you can put up here. So for my dream mansion, when I'm thinking about if I had all the money in the world and I wanted to build a mansion, what would I have? I don't want you guys to feel limited either. Pretend you have all the money you could ever think of. If you want to build your mansion on top of a mountain, build your mansion on top of a mountain. If you want to have an underground mansion, why not make an underground mansion? What about a mansion in space? Sure, why not? Just think about the needs and the wants that will inform your process of designing a mansion. So for my mansion, I'm going to say, I need shelter, right? That's going to be the same as the Bidwell Mansion. That's probably going to be the same no matter when or where you live. You need a house that provides you with shelter. Now, what else might I say that I need? I'm going to say that I need electricity. Now, John Bidwell, he didn't need electricity, but we live in a very plugged-in digital society, and much of our personal and professional lives are highly dependent on the devices that we use. It is hard to function in our society today without our electronics. So I'm going to go ahead and say that electricity, for me, is going to be a need. I'm also going to find Wi-Fi, which I can go through somewhere. Wi-Fi is also going to be a need because we are very reliant on things like our phones, again, for our professional and our personal lives. So we can see right off the bat, I'm a lot more needy than John Bidwell, right? But what sort of things would I want in my mansion? Would I want the same things that John wanted? Well, at least one of them. I do want a tower. I've been up in that tower. It's fun, it's cool. And you know, when you have all the money in the world and you're building your dream mansion, sometimes you don't need any other reason then. It's cool and I want it. So yeah, I want a tower on my mansion because I think it's fun. And like John as well, I would like a library because I like to read a lot. However, although I like to read a lot, I'm also a child of my generation and I play a lot of video games. So how about a game room? A room where I can have all the latest top-of-the-line video game consoles and gadgets and computers, and you know, I can play games to my heart's content. What other hobbies do I have, though? I don't just read and play video games, although I do a lot of both of those. I also like to paint. So I'm going to put a painting studio in my dream mansion. I want a place where I can have all of my painting supplies and I can spend my time painting. And the last thing that perhaps I want are guest rooms, because I get lonely. That's something that my mansion would tell you about me. I get lonely easily, so I want to have lots of guests, friends and family over visiting me. Bidwell Mansion has lots of guest rooms as well. It's a very big house. So you can see here my wants and my needs. And I'd like you to try to come up with a couple of each yourself, at least, you know, in each category. And once you've done that, you can see, you know, what would your mansion tell people about you? My mansion would tell people that I wanted a tower, that I thought it was cool, that I like to read, that I like to play video games, that I like to paint, that I like to have friends and family come visit me. So already it's telling people quite a bit about who I am as a person. And the last step today, once you have your wants and your needs all listed out here, the last step is going to be to draw the mansion that fulfills all of these wants, all of these needs. So take whatever you have to write with, whatever you prefer, be it pen, pencil, crayon, and something to write on. And we are going to design, by drawing, our dream mansions that fulfill all of the wants and the needs that we have listed. And then you can take a look at that mansion and compare it to Bidwell Mansion. How is your mansion different than the mansions of the past? How have our wants and needs changed as a society? How might they continue to change? And what can places like Bidwell Mansion tell us about the past, about the present, and possibly about the future? So we have about 6 minutes here to spend drawing. I will be drawing with you here. Don't feel like you have to stop drawing your mansion when this program ends. Please, by all means. I know 6 minutes is not a very long time to draw a mansion. Spend as long as you would like. And if you want, we'd love if you would tag us in your drawings. You can tag us on Facebook. We are Bidwell Mansion State Historic Park. We'd love to see the sorts of mansions that you yourself come up with based on this program. And I'm going to go ahead and take down, well, I'll move my wants and needs over because I'm going to be using them to design my mansion. And then I will draw along with you. If I can find it. Look at me coming unprepared to my program. I don't have a pen. So start drawing your mansions, and I'll be right back. That's better. Now we've got a pen and we can start drawing our mansion. So there's a couple ways you can do this. One of the ways that you can draw your mansion and I'm left-handed here, so I apologize. I'm a little bit away. You can draw your mansion as if you were looking at it from the street. So here's you. And you can draw your mansion. Maybe put a window up here. For the sake of the demonstration, it's again pretty simple. But you can also draw what your mansion would look like. For example, if it was this model and we took the roof off and looked inside of it. And that's how you can show where all your different rooms and things are. So you can draw your mansion kind of from the top down. So here's the mansion. Here's the front door. And let's say we want all our different rooms in here. Put some doorways into those rooms. And then we can label, what are these different rooms? Well, let's say this one is our living room. We put an L. Maybe this is a bedroom. This is a kitchen. So I know these are kind of simple demonstrations of these ways, but by doing this, what in architectural terms would be called an elevation and a floor plan, you can show people not only what your mansion would look like looking at it from the street, but where all of these cool rooms and features that you've put into your mansion would go. And since we are a little limited by time and I'm a slow drawer, I've actually cheated a little bit. And I did take the liberty to draw my own dream mansion before this program actually started. And I can put that up here for you now so you can see my mansion that I designed to go along with my wants and with my needs. So I'll stick it up on the board here. And there we have it. So that is my dream mansion right there. That fulfills all of my wants and all of my needs. We have not one, but 2 towers, because I like towers. It's fun. It provides shelter. It's technological, top of the line. I didn't do the top-down drawing because I was a little lazy, let's be honest. But this is my dream mansion. This is what it would look like. And I hope to see your dream mansions as well. And thank you so much for joining us here at Bidwell Mansion State Historic Park for this Junior Ranger program. So we hope you have a great rest of your day. We hope you will check out some other Junior Ranger programs as well. Don't forget to stick around at the end to take the Junior Ranger program survey so you can get those digital badges and be well on your way to some cool real life prizes. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.